Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Sweeney. I'm the Director of Education and Special Programs at the Center for Nonprofit Advancement. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We are very excited to have recently wrapped up our 2020 Board Leadership Award competition, and we're doubly excited to be able to host our honorable mention and winner this year in a series of videos that are highlighting best practices that we're able to pull out during the Board Leadership Award process. So we're really excited to have our winner, ISPU, Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, and our honorable mention, Food and Friends, joining us today for a discussion on building your board. Other videos will include fundraising, evolution of mission and strategic leadership, and the last one is, I'm blanking, is selecting an executive director. So please keep an eye out for those. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Anne Schrantz, who is with Cohn Resnick, who is the sponsor of the award. Over to you, Anne.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. Just want to take the opportunity to congratulate ISPU and Food and Friends for the great work this year. I think everyone was really thrilled with the process, and you all brought so much to it, so congratulations. I want to thank the center for their work, and Sean in particular for guiding us through this process, and Cheryl is a representative of the selection committee. They do great work and really spend a lot of time and energy to make sure that we're able to convey best practices back to the sector. And that was really what engaged us as auditors and as tax professionals in becoming involved in the award from its inception and working with the center to develop it. Really, you know, what is the role the boards play? How can they impact how do they impact the organizations, and what best practices and innovations can we share with the sector based on great organizations that we're dealing with? So Cohn Resnick, is being a national audit and tax firm headquartered in New York, but having a significant presence in Bethesda and Tysons here in the Washington area. We're really thrilled to be part of this. So I congratulate you all, and I thank Cheryl and Sean, and I will turn it over to Cheryl.
Thanks, Anne, and thanks for your sponsorship of this really important award. My name is Cheryl Williams. I'm the Vice President of the Women's Congressional Policy Institute, and I'm really pleased to be a part of this selection committee. This is my first year as part of the committee, and I appreciate the center, first of all, inviting me to participate, but secondly, spearheading this award. It's such an important award. I want to take a moment to have our winner and honorable mention representatives introduce themselves. I'll start with Skip, if you want to introduce yourself as
Sure.
Food and Friends.
Yeah, my name is Skip Williams. I'm the president of the board of Food and Friends. I've been associated with the organization for about 12 years now. On the board for about 10 or 11 of those years. And I am the Dean and Professor Emeritus of the George Washington University School of Medicine.
Great, thank you. And Moheeb?
Yeah, my name is Moheeb Murray. I was formerly on the board of ISPU. I recently, within the last 2 weeks, just rolled off the board due to term limits. I was on the board for about 12 years, and I was the chair of the governance committee for several years prior to my term limit ending. I'd say probably 6 years or so, I believe it was. And by when I wasn't doing ISPU work, I am a private practice attorney in Troy, Michigan.
Thanks to you both, and thanks for participating in this. I guess I'll go ahead and just get started and jump right into our discussion. One of the things that, one of the characteristics that became really clear early on in our interview process, and something that both of your organizations have in common, is the extent to which your board members are passionate about and engaged in the mission and work of your respective organizations. It was also really clear that this passion and commitment didn't happen by chance, but instead was the result of very intentional and innovative efforts to cultivate that high level of engagement. And so that's kind of what I want to center our conversation around a little bit, is about the intentionality of actively cultivating effective, passionate boards. And so I'll start by asking Moheeb about ISPU's recruitment tool, which we came to understand as sort of a mapping process. And it seems like this process created a culture of assessment and improvement among the board, but also helped you identify potential recruits. So can you talk a little bit about why ISPU created this model and what it entails and sort of what the impact it has had on your organization?
Sure. Well, we created the model really because we always tried to have a long-term vision of where ISPU was going in connection with having a 3- and 5-year strategic plan, and wanting to make sure that we're building a board that will be able to execute that plan going forward. So through the processes that we had with our board retreat and other kind of strategic planning processes that we had, we really thought it was important to have a robust system in place for identifying new board members who could help us fill the gaps where we thought we had them or where we thought we might have them going forward. And really, rather than just kind of winging it, so to speak, I really thought it was important to have a very definite methodical process for achieving that. So essentially, after every time we would have our retreat, we would identify where we thought we had strengths and weaknesses and gaps and things like that, and then our governance committee would be tasked with coming up with a matrix of kind of what those gaps were, anything else that the governance committee thought that we had an area where we needed to fill, where we thought the strengths and weaknesses were. And what we would do is, as a committee, consents on that, and then start identifying the types of candidates we would need to fill those gaps. And we would start our call for nominations for people to submit either their own name or those of people they know to, possibly participate in the ISPU board. Then we would engage in our vetting process of reviews and kind of identifying who would be a good fit, who would maybe not be a good fit, and then from there taking it to the next step of coming up with a short list of candidates, interviewing those candidates. Well, I guess gauging their interest first, then interviewing those candidates, and then making recommendations to the general board about the individuals we thought would be the best fit for the strategic needs of the organization, but also our culture and vision for the organization. And those were all really important key concepts to having continuity of the board. With my departure and the departure of 2 other board members who left at the same time I did, ISPU board is now actually completely new. No one who was originally on the board is still on the board at ISPU, and that's something that we're actually very proud of as an organization, and we think our process helped us to achieve that.
That's great. Skip, along the same lines in terms of recruiting, Food and Friends talked a lot about your board boot camp as part of the recruiting and onboarding process. And so can you talk a little bit about what the boot camp actually is and how you've used it as a tool to cultivate engagement among your board members, many of whom have served for a long time on your board?
Yeah, we think the boot camp is critically important to onboarding new people for the board and also as a recruitment tool. And the reason for that is a lot of people out there, they don't truly understand the differences between organizations that provide food to the public, clients, patients, and so forth. And our organization is unique in that we serve medically tailored meals. And so depending upon a particular disease state, whether it be HIV, AIDS, cardiovascular disease, cancer, kidney disease, our chefs and cooks tailor those meals to those individuals. And we thought many, many years ago that a good way to truly introduce people to what we actually do, particularly potential board members, was the boot camp. And in the boot camp, what we do is we have the individual go through every aspect of the organization, from finance to recruitment to the kitchen to the groceries and delivery, so that they get a true idea of what this organization does. And as part of that, they participate. They actually participate. So they will go with our drivers and they will deliver meals to our clients. They will work in the kitchen and help prepare meals for our clients. And they can see very clearly that there are different types of meals for the different types of illnesses that our patients may have. I think the other thing that we try to impress is that this could be any one of us. This could be any one of us that could wind up with a disease that's life-threatening and would need the services of an organization like ours. So we try to get them fully involved from day one. And boot camp is a perfect example, so that people walk away and they have no doubt whatsoever what this organization does and what it takes to deliver 1 million meals a year.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So for both of you, Nick, moving sort of from the recruitment to sort of more, I guess, development, or ideas about board development. Moheeb, perhaps one of the most innovative tools that we've seen when it comes to board development is, and you mentioned this already, is the board retreat. How did you come up with such a comprehensive retreat, and how have you used it as a tool? And I guess also to add on to that, what lessons can you share with other organizations that might be interested in taking a similar approach to board development?
Sure. In terms of how we came up with the process, I think initially it was just a matter of the founding board members really just having a vision of the organization long term and where we would want it to go. And as part of that, there was the identification of the need to really have a designated time to get all the board members together, to be able to share ideas in an intimate setting where we could all learn more about each other, learn more about our concerns about the organization, the areas we thought we were succeeding, really having that close contact as part of the retreat process, which really, I think, moved things forward for ISPU. It helps develop a sense of understanding. It helps develop a sense of trust among the board members. And it really was just something that grew over time as the organization progressed. We ended up having it be, it was at least a day and a half of full-on retreat meetings. We would actually have, even the night before the first day, we'll have more of a social function just to kind of, break the ice and get to know each other, that type of thing, and really have some fellowship that way. And then that would make the meetings go more smoothly. So it was really, we identified the need early to have that time to really focus, because when you're having your regular board meetings, you're more or less dealing with what needs to be handled now, what is the next crisis you need to deal with, or the next issue, and you're not really thinking long term. So having that time to have an intensive board retreat, usually we would have a facilitator as part of that retreat as well. We didn't always have that, but that was something that would be very helpful to kind of keep us on task and focused on what the goal of the retreat was, rather than just always devolving into what the immediate business was. A facilitator would really be helpful in helping us stay on track. And then as part of the retreat too, we would involve the staff as well, the executive director, development director, research director, other members of the staff, and even other stakeholders in the organization. Sometimes we would have donors come in and give us their perspective and feedback on things that they saw and liked in ISPU, or things that were issues of concern for them, so that they could relate to us how the organization was impacting them, and we could really see that on the ground. So the retreat was instrumental in having a 360 view of ISPU for the board members. And as far as advice for other organizations, I would say, you know, have an expectation that your board, if you're going to come together for a retreat, is going to be dedicated to that, and to really be, you know, present in body and mind for that meeting. Really be focused on accomplishing that task, but also build in some time to have some fun and just to get to know each other, because that goes such a long way in having an effective organization when the board members like each other, trust each other, and really feel open to share ideas with each other.
Skip,
Cheryl,
your
we
board. Go ahead.
do things a little bit differently. We've had retreats on and off over the years, but we don't have set retreats. What we try to do, we rely very heavily on our subcommittees, and a staff member as well as a board member. The board member chairs the committee, and there's always a senior staff member that works with that board member. And they can meet 6 to 12 times a year. And what we do for our board meetings is 45 minutes to a half hour to 45 minutes before every meeting, we have a meal together. And this is purely to talk, to get to know one another, to find out how things are going with each other's families and things like that, before we actually sit down and have the board meeting. And the participation is phenomenal. That everybody comes, you know, for the dinner, and conversations are very lively. It's not coordinated. It's 2 people here, 4 people there, and so forth. And then we have the meeting, and that's how I think we really build up the camaraderie. And the beauty of that also is former board members are always invited. And a significant number show up, which is fascinating. And so they give their expertise, they give their information and their knowledge, and that really helps our newer board members.
Well, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about specifically, Skip, because the passion for Food and Friends really was another one of the things that came through. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about how you cultivate, and that you've touched on this, you know, here and there as well, but really cultivating that passion throughout your board community and your commitment. And then what lessons have you learned over the years about cultivating passion for the mission?
Sure. Well, I think in terms of our recruitment process, it's much more of a word of mouth. It's people who know people. And I will say that the staff does a great job of vetting individuals who are recommended. And we look for people that they don't necessarily have to have, but it really helps to have prior volunteer experience. It doesn't have to be with Food and Friends. It could be with any organization where people decide to volunteer. And so, and again, that's where our former board members play a key role, because they're the ones that frequently recommend individuals either that they work with or they're in a different organization with. And then the staff goes ahead and vets those individuals. And the reason we look for individuals that have had prior voluntary experience is because we know they're passionate about taking care of other people, doing for other people. And once we identify those people, we then go through, before boot camp, the process that we do at Food and Friends. What makes a Skip Williams want to do this? What makes A, B, C, and D want to do this? And they get an opportunity to talk to those folks. And that way we can sense the level of their passion. And we want the most passionate people. And for us, it's worked out really, really well. There are times when, you know, we've had a short board, but we've always said, that's okay. Much rather have the person we want than Mr. or Mrs. anybody. And that really works for us.
Great. Moheeb, going back to the concept of the retreat, I want to dig down a little bit in terms of on that. How does your board really identify the goals for the organization? How do you identify what are the sort of the top level things, aside from, as you mentioned, like they're the day-to-day things that need to be addressed, but sort of the larger goals for ISPU during the retreat, or just maybe in general, not necessarily related to that retreat?
Yeah, well, I think it is partly an ongoing discussion, and things just naturally evolve as new issues come up and new situations present themselves, that goals get identified and come to the fore. But also as part of the retreat, we're very intentional about having part of the retreat set aside for identifying those goals. I mean, we're very specific about it. We also, as I mentioned, we'll have a 3-year strategic plan that we put in place as part of that. That very explicitly identifies goals for the organization as part of that plan. And of course, as we get closer to the end of that 3 years, we revisit it and reassess the goals and everything that goes with that for the organization. So I think for ISPU, it's very intentional of identifying goals based on current situations that are going on, that are relevant to our mission of the organization. Also looking at realities with regard to availability of funds or new opportunities to get grants or donations, things of that nature. So I think mostly it's a very intentional idea of identifying goals that fit with our mission vision of the organization and trying to execute against that plan. But things can just pop up as well and present a new opportunity or a new idea that we would want to pursue, and we might start chasing that goal, but then work it into the general plan. And if it's not consistent with that plan, we might evaluate, is that something we need to be doing now, or is that something maybe we can work into a future long-term plan. But so it's a little bit of both, but I'd say that we tend to, for ISPU, we tended to be very, I think, deliberate about identifying goals.
I see. For both of you, in terms of your efforts to build really strong and intentional boards, have you noticed, and to what effect, if so, a sort of a trickle-down effect into the staff in terms of your whatever, maybe it's because you have these ideas set out in boot camp and those sort of trickle down to the staff, or maybe it's ideas that you develop through the mapping process in your board retreat that have sort of trickled down throughout the organization. What impact do you think your deliberate efforts at building strong boards have had on the organization as a whole and the staff in particular?
I think one of the deliberate efforts that we do is all of us on the board, we volunteer. Whether it's in the kitchen, preparing food, bagging groceries, or delivering food. And most of the staff volunteers as well. And so you find yourself shoulder to shoulder, not only with staff members, but with volunteers as well. And we work really, really hard to get the opinions of the volunteers, what works, what doesn't work, what do you like about the organization, what do you not like so much, and we do the exact same thing with the staff. And I think the staff feels that they can talk to any one of us at any given time. And most of the time, it's right on the premises themselves. So I think that really makes a big, big difference. We're seen. We walk the walk.
Yeah, I think for ISPU, given the nature of our mission, it's a little different because you can't really, for a lot of the board and staff, it's hard to quote unquote volunteer on the front lines of what we do, given that we're a research organization. But I think we try to achieve the same thing Skip is talking about by getting the staff involved with the board as much as we can. I mentioned earlier, we'll have staff members present at the retreat. We'll actively solicit their input and feedback. We'll ask them, very pointed questions about what are they seeing, in their job, what are the things that are working, what are the things that aren't working. We want their input and feedback on helping to set what the goals of the organization will be, what's realistic, what's not. Same thing with, any of the, when we do our SWOT analysis, we'll have them involved in that part of it. Mm-hmm. And I think the overall import of that is that, we don't have any walls between board and staff in terms of, the staff, I think, knows that the board has their back and vice versa, and that we are all working together to achieve a common goal. And I think the staff sees the buy-in from the board, and that helps them align to the mission better and really execute their jobs better. And then that in turn frees up the board to really be thinking strategically for the organization and not be, the hands-on board that we were when we first started. And I think that's essential for the growth of any organization.
I think that's really such a critical element for both your organizations, which was visible throughout sort of the interview process, is how your boards align with the mission and how that mission is driven from the top down. And because of your active involvement in that mission and passion for the mission and passion for the work, then it becomes really easy, I think, for other organizations to see how those two things work in tandem with each other. So I want to be mindful of our time. And so as we close, I'd like to ask both of you to share some last words of advice or lessons learned or words of wisdom about how other organizations can be intentional about strengthening their board's culture and engagement and development.
Well, again, it's all about passion, and it's about having smart people from every walk of life, every profession. We look very hard if we're beginning to do a new building project or we're expanding. We look for people who actually know about construction, know about real estate. Mm-hmm. If we're really reevaluating our finances and so forth, we look for people who are in banking or have experience like that. And so you're actually utilizing the strengths that the people bring to you. And I think they really appreciate that. And I'm sure Moheeb would say the same thing, is plenty of compliments, letting people know when you're doing a good job. Just don't assume.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Skip said. I think, making sure that your board members are feeling like they're adding value and being contributing members of the board by bringing them on for the skill set that they can specifically, provide and being able to, so they have that sense of purpose, and then they see how their skill set fits in with the overall mission and vision of the organization. I think that's really critical to having a successful board. And then more generally, I think it's also important to be forward thinking, to have a long-term plan so that you can best figure out how to slot those people in and make their contributions mean the most for the organization, rather than just being reactive to problems all the time. If you have that long-term plan, I think that, people, they don't feel as exhausted all the time just reacting to things and everything's
trying to keep up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think that's another key to keeping the board engaged, is where they see, an end goal and they're always working towards that, rather than just dealing with whatever the immediate fires are.
Well, Thank you both for this, for sharing your insights with us. I think you both have a lot of innovative advice to offer to the nonprofit community. And so we're really appreciative of your time and your efforts individually and together as part of that community. I just want to take a moment of personal privilege to thank the Center for Nonprofit Advancement again for its continuing efforts to highlight organizations that are doing really great work, and to thank Cone Resnick for sponsoring this award, and also to thank Sean Sweeney for guiding us through this process and spearheading this. So thank you to you all for being part of this.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl. We really appreciate your time moderating this panel for us. And Moheeb and Skip, thank you again so much for sharing your expertise on this specific topic among board governance. We really, really appreciate it. Again, like Cheryl was saying, this year was just such a awesome process, and being able to highlight both of your organizations is really something we are very happy to do and excited about. So thank you again. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Like I said, this is only one of 4 videos, so make sure to keep an eye out for the other 3. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned a lot, and thanks again for joining.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.